Messing with Massie doesn't make America great again. Fueling the growth of the state government raging in the nation of the United States of America does not make America great. The USA is great despite its government. So great are the foundational aspects of the Republic of the United States of America embodied in the individual Americans who make up its DNA that a state government could parasitically prey upon the nation of America, growing to the size that it is, without the collective body politic succumbing to its carcinogenic effects a long time ago. America first is America first. Problem is, though, that people define America and first differently, and this goes along with the thing that I noticed that just helped me figure things out in different ways, is that problems occur due to how we define X rather than what X actually is. So for some Americans, it's America as a people should be the first consideration. Americans themselves, even before the government, the individual Americans first. For others, though, they think that it's America as a nation should be first in power in whatever sphere nations can exist in, the body politic, the huge institution, the social structure, social entity that is America. So focus on what the body politic that is the American people has power to do rather than what the individual Americans can do. So from my time in America and just watching American politics and just global politics, just people watching, being really a big political fan, I am confident that no real solution to making America great again depends solely on more government policy, laws, or other schemes. And Republican Congressman from Kentucky, Thomas Massie, thinks that too. He thinks that the Constitution was based on that premise that never relied on a centralized government to make the founders of America great, nor was it needed to continue making America greater post-independence. Some people disagree, and many of those that do are statists who can't really get where he's coming from. When people like I'm coming from, when he talked about liberty, they just can't really think that. Those are the kind of people who the second you talk about a life without a state, they just automatically start thinking of chaos, which is more telling for them. With you wondering, you're telling me that you're not actually conning, stealing from, and generally violating people because the state has laws, or because you personally think it's wrong? Or do you just think that you individual human beings who you also want to vote on things would do that without the state, so they're so horribly unethical and immoral? But you said no, it's a ridiculous thing. Don't pay attention to those sorts of peoples. Second term of Trump came by, and Thomas Massie is still who Thomas Massie is. There were some spats with him in the first term, and there have been some more in the second term, and especially when it was the big, beautiful bill, Thomas Massie was really against that, putting his foot down, saying, no, I'm not voting for that, no, I'm not supporting that, and Trump really wanted to go through. So Trump has been talking about actually having somebody to primary Thomas Massie. And so they saw this post that he had on X of AIPAC looking for someone to primary me in Kentucky for right now. With AIPAC, he also has objections to the continued support of Israel while Israel is doing what it is. And he's been against that support for welfare, not just the warfare state, but also welfare state. So it's not just because of what's happening in Gaza, but just in general, just sending millions to other countries, be it Ukraine, be it Israel, be it countries that are at peace, the European countries and things like that that are getting influence. He just doesn't support that. And this is something that those people can't really understand, who I mentioned, who think America as a body politic should be primary, should have some primacy, should have its superpower, should be affecting all these places. And we're going to be talking about some of that here. So Massie will almost certainly win his seat again. However, the debating, the traction, and other disagreements with him from people who support Trump and his more politics as usual policies will continue. I shall now go over some conversations I had with a few people trying to explain what I believe Massie's Libertarian Foundation is. As I mentioned, this was on that post. This post was posted on Facebook, and I went to the comments and I had some conversations. So one comment on this Massie post about AIPAC was this. This is by QZ. Here's a list of all the bills Massie has introduced and gotten passed while in Congress. Number 1, question mark, question mark, question mark. Number 2, question mark, question mark, question mark. Number 3, question mark, question mark, question mark. So the problem here comes from defining the X Massie cares about and what deliverables on X those who voted for him would like. If you do not accurately define X here, your premises can be wrong. Statists can't grasp that other people think growing state government power is a bad thing. So Massie isn't like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the sort of people like that who claim they will go in there and make the government do more than do nothing. I guess they do some of the things, but in generally they're not pushing that democratic socialism that they might be running on. Massie went in claiming he would try to make the government do less, and he has stuck to that. So if you look into the list of bills Massie has opposed, then you'll see why he's still in there. You'll see why opposing the big beautiful bill accurately represents the desire of those people who voted for him as a representative. Here's some other comments. If I were Mr. Massie, I would be more worried about the Mossad if AIPAC doesn't get their way. I don't know what to say this. I think the myth of the Mossad is far greater than the fact of the Mossad, and I'm sure the Mossad appreciates that and actually cultivates that. It's good to have this mystique with a sort of inquisition agency, regardless of where it is. That does some of its work for you if your reputation can actually lead in that way. But what realistic benefit would the Mossad have in a hit here? Israel is already benefiting more than enough from the carrots covered in honey that they do not need to use sticks soaked in poison in this case. And then QZ from that first post comes back. He says, it also takes bills to cut spending. If a bill implements it, a bill must rescind it unless it is specifically worded to sundown. And I replied that, yeah, sure, QZ, but who would co-sign it? Who would co-sign these spending cuts enough to even get it to the presentation level? Because you have to have something, you can't just think something up one day and just walk up to Congress and be like, let's put this bill. You have to have enough people to come together to actually propose something for it to even be voted for. So I was not arguing the process here. Bureaucratic process is part of what puts me off on state governments to begin with. But I think QZ can't break out of the thinking that Massie and I simply don't understand how to get the state to do things for us. Surely no one can want the state to stop doing things at all. Just stop. My issue isn't stop doing unethical things because it hurts me and instead do unethical things that hurt other people for my own benefit. It's like, no, just stop doing the unethical things. Now another reply from SYK. He never has solutions, okay? Stand against a bill you don't agree with, but you better be willing to give other options. My reply was, no, SYK. I get its politics and there are practicalities to think of, but if a train is hurtling towards a cliff, I don't have to provide a perfectly safe and separate train and track to use for the safe and appropriate thing to do being telling people to stop the train or get off. Here you see how statists are statists regardless of nation, race, location. This is just something that they believe in. The state is inherently good, so the state must exist. And this was highlighted in a recent Come See This Thing post with 1533, where President William Ruto was responding to the protests that were ongoing. Just going to clip something in here.
And solutions cannot be found in terms. Solutions are found in strategy and a plan. And if it is Ruto must go, tell me how you want me to go. What? You know, let's be honest with ourselves. What do you mean? What do you mean by Ruto must go? How do I go? Because we have a constitution in place, dear people, right? Yes. If you want Ruto to go, please, my simple advice to you, look for a better plan. Convince the people of Kenya that you have a better plan. This one of mine has created 250,000 jobs in the house.
And there he shows how politicians are also politicians regardless of where they are. Because he goes into the whole thing that if the government regime, whatever is in, when the jobs happen to be created, it's because of his government. But in the inverse, when people are protesting on the streets because they don't have jobs, that has nothing to do with the policies that he has. So yeah, it's in the Constitution, but the Constitution isn't something that y'all always follow. By definition, the state are the people who are set and put themselves above being subject to the actual laws and rules that are in the Constitution. That is what the political class of the state does. And I expect if SYK looked at Kenya where this kind of feasting on ill-gotten resources is more blatant and so little is doled out to the public, he would look at that and be like, or they would look at that, or she would look at that and say, okay, this is a bad thing. But in the United States of America, the politerati have so much wealth to eat from that there is more than enough left to spread around and let Americans believe that their higher standards of life is reliant on the state government policy maintaining the state of affairs. It's easier for them to fall back on the point of view that at most you just need the right people in those positions of control to create a slightly less intrusive state, and then that will maintain the steady increase of human flourishing that you see in the world in general, even the developing countries. It continues despite the governments. And as such, they balk at suggestions that the state directly impedes the levels of life that they would have achieved without it. So the comments kept coming, and QZ replied again. So Massie has the right ideology but no ability to persuade people to join him? I don't even know if I'm doing the same accents anymore, but I'll just keep doing that. Okay, so my reply. QZ, the truth does not need to be convincing for it to be true. But this is politics. Can't force people to believe that the profits they get from controlling the legal use of force are far less than they would by engaging in voluntary interactions. Especially as you point out, some of us may not be able to convince someone else to, for example, pay for the lives that are created or lives you want to end due to our actions in an actual free market. This right here, I was hinting at people who want to have child support provided by the state, transfers of resources in that way, and also who want to be able to have the ability and funding for termination of gestation to also be handled by the state. So I can imagine peeps actually believing they said profound things in defense of the state, like when I came out from being Christian and dabbled in general spirituality before becoming the a-religious kind of a atheist position that I'm in now. A similar thing happened when I started getting more into politics. And it was like, okay, I don't feel like I'm one of these parties, so I'm just more of an independent with the background that, yes, states are positive and kind of a low-level statist, before I just got to this point where I'm like, no, we don't need the state. Actually, it's harm. It's more harm than any good. Full-on anarcho-capitalist now. So QZ came back with another one. You can't just know the truth. You have to be able to convince others of the truth, or you shouldn't be in politics. He's just one vote out of the 435. My reply. QZ, I assume that you believe that to be a true statement, even though you have not convinced me that it is true. I did specify that this is politics we are talking to, which focuses on what is practical. If you want the state to do X, you have to convince a subset of people that can wield the power of the state to force the ones who don't want to do X into compliance. That is true. But Massie has strong libertarian leanings, so at most is for at least trying to keep the actions the state does to its constitutionally approved limits. And in this case, he's talking about the big beautiful bill, which is not with the Constitution. Spending's not in there. He also has objections to funding of Israel and other countries. Just talking about not being tied into foreign alliances. This is a common thing that has been in the Constitution, is in the founding of America, that he's just trying to keep towards. So with this situation, I tend to disengage when people I'm having conversations with stop addressing the points that I've made in favor of rephrasing their catechisms. So I didn't even check back to see if QZ came back with more after this. But he is coming from the standpoint that I and Massie are trying to use the power of the state in the wrong way. He's like, hey, you see that weapon right there? You got to pick it up first. You got to load it. You got to take the safety off. You got to aim it. Then you got to threaten to pull the trigger. And at that point, the people that you were aiming it at will do what you want them to do. And I'm like, nah, I support Massie and other people because he is for putting down the weapon, locking it away, and then using conversation, debate, and other nonviolent means to try to establish win-win interactions where both parties can get at least some of what they want. Here I can also see that mentality of, if I beat my children a little bit, it will show them how bad the greater forms of violence are. And it bleeds off into other things. I can entertain that and may be swayed on arguments of some use of statecraft and the bureaucratic process could be used to curb the growth of what state power already exists. Like you go in and fight it from the inside, which is what Massie is doing. He decided to go in there. Like I think even when I was in college in West Virginia, there was somebody who I think had joined the Senate there, and he said he was joining just to vote no on every single thing, and he kept getting voted in, and he kept just voting no on every single thing. Like, you have also a situation where firefighters go ahead of the conflagration and burn down some trees, like a fire break of sorts. So they're saying, we're not starting this fire in order to continue the bonfire, continue the wildfire, but it gets here and then we cut it off and the fire burns what's already burning in this zone. So maybe there's something to that, but the big beautiful bill is not that. And when this was happening, when it was flared up at the time, which was a couple of months ago at this point in time, I don't know. So much has happened in this Trump administration. It's like 7 or 8 months in. It's like 7 months in, and it seems like it's been 7 years already. This seems like, I'm assuming this person was not pro-Biden. I'm just assuming this. So it seems like you're saying that, sure, the Build Back Better things that Biden was doing were bad and burning up resources. But now, let's accelerate that burning and let it reach these other areas with a big, beautiful bill. Then after both fires die out, we will have twice the area to utilize for all the great plans that I promise we have on how efficiently we can harness the ingenuity and resilience of the American people and make America great again. But this too is America. This Instagram video I saw here was just like it's like some old man sitting on a beach and porch on a beach in his house and his family is there, and then some jets come screaming down the beach and he gets up and he records that people are cheering and AC/DC Thunderstruck is playing in the background. It's just a great thing. Like, America is not backed by nothing. It's backed by F yeah. Americans are people who descend from those who lived in Europe and other places, felt that there were too many restrictions on their agency there, then traveled to the New World to try and build a better life for themselves. There's a wide range of agency in how that move happened, but once there in America, there's a common thread in those who continue to make America a great place that more want to travel to. They did not expect there to be a benevolent system that would provide for them, but rather that they would be at liberty to work things out for themselves. The people became Americans by great efforts, quite often needing to take the responsibility to wield guns themselves against great odds. Due to that, there has been an increase of those who see the results of those great efforts and feel a certain base level of comfort, safety, and contentedness is owed to them. Their liberty should be guaranteed by the state's monopoly of legalized violence. All that is incumbent on them is to support the most benevolent people to wield the now much more powerful and plentiful guns on their behalf. I previously posted on my blog that Massie and his life choices are more of those first pioneering American founders of American greatness. That's the feel and thing that he comes off on me. And you should check out his history. He built his own house. He lived by himself. He's off the grid, especially, I think, like internet. And I guess now he has Starlink. But he's pretty much that kind of pioneer, sort of old throwback American. But when it comes to Trump, he also is American in his own way. He's uniquely American in his own way. But this is the post-American establishment, that whole system that America is, that was so great at also maximizing. He's maximized that American greatness in modern current timeline as much as you possibly can. And here now I'll also add this third avatar of what makes America great in the form of a newer American that embodies the two examples of Trump and Massie, and those foreigners that were initially drawn to the potential that could be launched from the nation that could exist on the continent, on that North America continent spanning landmass. And Donald Trump could be more of a president of the unprecedented president because he harnessed what America is first. Thomas Massie could not take the stances he does unless he looked to the founding principles of America first. And then this third person, and Elon Musk, could not be Elon Musk unless he moved first to America and became an American first. And if this conflagration of politics as usual, hopes and dreams of actual change, debates about the meaning of America first, ends up bogged down in the swamp that this monoparty state government system of the world's largest state ever, then somehow, some way, someone harnesses the raising awareness that we do need alternatives to statism for the liberty that enables human flourishing to occur comes about. Possibly by having one of the most powerful and influential American to ever exist butt heads with possibly one of the most powerful and influential American over support of one of the most quintessential representation of what being an average American is over what makes America great, somehow accelerates to the destruction of establishment politicati status quo and leads to the founding of a new political entity that is founded on the principles that make America great first and America First Party, then I'll gladly say that I was wrong on opposing the passing of this big, beautiful bill. Because like it or not, attribute nth degree chess or not to Trump, then somehow the madman continuing to do his God Emperor of the United States of America thing would have played a key part to inspire the spirit that the American body politic embodies to rise out of the ashes of destruction that states create and let individual Americans exercise their agency to make America great again. So that's it for now. Back to more of these longer form things. I've been posting the 3 minutes and 33 second versions of the Come See This Thing series for some time. but have a lot of things drafted up and thought up and want to get back to interviews and conversations, and we'll be posting more about that. But one thing I had been doing that I think is very applicable in this section, this is also with an Anyone But K series. In Anyone But K, I just thought of that idea. It's aesthetically pleasing, that idea of the red with Che Guevara, who's just a garbage human being in general. I was thinking anyone but Che would be better to have on a shirt. So this is a speed drawing has been going on of Thomas Massie. You can get links to the Redbubble store, and you can get shirts and other merchandise with that on there. And there's somebody else who's also on the merchandise, which is Thomas Sowell. Great, amazing, another great American person that is actually involved in making America that great sort of place that it is. He has these things where he has 3 questions that he asks. He normally says it to the left and about political things. And this is just kind of general. It's also a political kind of subject here. He's also an economist, so it has some economic aspects to it. So I'll apply those 3 questions to your Trump's objections or people's general objections to Thomas Massie. The first question is compared to what? So when you're talking about Thomas Massie, let's say he's a congressman. Are you comparing him to your average Republican congressman, your average Democrat congressman, your average politician in the world? Then no, Thomas Massie is relatively different. He's actually an outsider. He's as outsider as you can get while still being a politician. Maybe you can compare him to like Rand Paul or Ron Paul, actual libertarians. Get to understand what that actually means, and you can compare him to that. Now, at what cost? There's 2 things in this way. What is the cost to Thomas Massie for just dropping his principles? He would probably lose his seat. The people who voted for him would not vote for him. They would put a more typical person in there. Now, at what cost when you're talking about the actual amount of spending in the big beautiful bill? Thomas Massie said this is not only unconstitutional, it's also just an absurd amount of money. If you're saying we need to make America great again, what cost are you willing to pay? Not even you paying, but the other people paying. The government taking that money, making those trillions of dollars, increasing the government debt. It's make America great again. So it's going back to the past. And then what hard evidence do you have? So back to the past. Make America great again. In the past, when the debt wasn't at its, let me double check this. America's national debt is about $32 trillion now. So when you're talking about make America great again, you're going sometime in the past. So is it 2013 when it crossed 20 trillion debt? Was America not great then? Is that where you're making it great again to? Or are we going to go back to around 2004 when it crossed 10 trillion of debt? Or are we going to go back to the times of like in the 1970s when the debt was like around like low single digit, $1 or $2 or $3 trillion? Is that a time when America was great? When are you going back to America being great again that you can provide as evidence to say that this is the reason the government, the state needs to be spending trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars more? We need to be defending and sending money and weapons to all these other countries internationally. We need to be standing up against all the things that Thomas Massie claims he is for. We need to damn him. We need to fight him. We need to kick him out of there, because in order to make America great again, Thomas Massie needs to be messed with and removed because he is not a great American. What is your evidence for that? At what cost would this go through? And what are you comparing this situation to? So that's it for now, ladies, gentlemen, and everybody else in between. Thank you all very much. There's links in the info to the merchandise, and till next time.